What's up, muchachos? Today we're going to have part 2 of how the hell you make library music, so stick around. Okay, so far what we have from last week is that 4 on the floor with the cymbals, and it's very, the quarter notes are very enunciated there. We've got the chord progression, a little bit of synth thing. I'm not sure if I'm going to use that or not. And what I've gone ahead and done is I've started adding a beat into the song, like a second half. So this is going to be like getting out of the 4 on the floor and actually creating a beat, because that would just get annoying if it was 4 on the floor the entire time. So what I'm going to do is I don't want the same snare every single hit. I want, you know, on the 2 and 4, I want a different snare. I want it to oscillate. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and found 2 different samples I like. And one of them has kind of a lead in. It's kind of like a reverse into the snare. And for me to put that in, it can't be exactly on the grid because the sample doesn't start exactly up. So you'll hear in a second here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to offset that snare hit. That's a little too forward, so we got to adjust that. We can either adjust the sample or we can adjust the timing of the MIDI note. So I'm going to just adjust the timing of the MIDI note. Using the metronome really helps because you can line it up a little bit better with your ears. Very nice. Okay. Now I want to add a beat, a loud hit at the end of every, let's say, 4 bars or something like that. So we're going to find another snare sample. And we'll just layer it on the last measure of the 4 bar range. Okay. So I'm just making a beat. I'm just kind of throwing some elements in there. It's, you know, there's no exact science to this. It's just whatever you like. Now I'm looking for an arpeggiated synth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw in, I'm looking at patches here, and I like this one. This is the classic. This is in massive, and I'm going to just record this down. And I've got my, I think it's a 6/4/2 minor as the progression. And it sounds good to me. And I'm just going to throw the chords in there. They're transposed a little bit. Okay, I like that. It's easy. Now I'm going to quantize that. And we're going to mess around a little bit with it. Maybe change some of the parameters behind it. For the most part, that's a great sounding synth. So the parabolic shaper in Massive is a great thing to add. It adds kind of a flavor, I guess, to it. I can't even tell you what exactly it does. And maybe we should add a pump effect to that synth as well, because that would give it a nice kind of sidechain effect, and so we can throw that on later. Sweet. I'm liking this. I'm not sure if I'm going to use it at the beginning or in the groove here. So now I want to add another sound. We're going to try to add a flavor, another element here. So I'm going to pull up Razor just because I'm liking that. And we're going to look for sound, something that we can use. Okay, there's this interesting sound. But let's try to, I wrote a little part on the piano. I wrote this on the piano, that na-na-na-na-na. And we're going to find a sound that would go well with that. Okay, there might be a little bit too much delay there, but it's nice. I like this one here, and I'm jumping ahead in this video, so I don't want to bore you with me searching for all the samples, but I'm going to have that pump effect. I use the one knob pumper by Waves a lot. And so I've got a cool little effect there. So I think I want to move that synth to just be when the halftime starts to go, or the groove starts to come in. I don't want it in the intro. Cool. Now at the end of each one of these phrases, I want it to slide a little bit. I don't want it to be. Okay, so now I added another little part to this. And I've got it sliding. Now if we want to adjust the slide, we can do it inside Razor. Okay, I'm not crazy about that sound, but I don't want to worry so much about that right now. I want to mainly worry about just getting the parts in, and then I can adjust some of those things in the mixing portion of this. So what I've done is I've doubled this track because I want to take pieces from both. And so I'm just going to cut and paste and trim out the parts on the one track that I don't want and add in the parts in the other track because I want a different sound for that other part. I don't want it to be the same sound. So now I found the sound that's kind of sad sound. It's kind of yearning. And when you add those elements of, when you add those slides in it, really sounds nice and sad and kind of, it sounds human. And again, I always come back to make your synths sound humanistic. The way almost a voice would say. And you can adjust all those parameters in there, and of course it's all about learning the synth. So I can adjust the cutoff of this because I want that last key holds and it sustains, and I want that to change. I don't want it to just be da. I want it to be I want it to move. See how that sounds? Much better. Then we can add Replica, which is another quick plugin I have for repeating things. There's a lot of, you could use Echo Boy, you could use something native in Ableton Live. But I'm eventually going to throw this plugin on a auxiliary track, so I'll have a little bit more control of it. But for now, we're just going to keep it on here. Okay, now I've added in some hits. So I'm listening to some white noise, I'm listening to some swells. I have just setups of just white noise and hits. And here's another one. That's just like a long sustained crash. I think it's actually white noise, but it sounds kind of like a crash. Now I have two different kicks now. I've got a big kick and I've got a small kick. And the small kick has a faster sustain, and the big kick is mainly for those big quarter notes. So I'm going to draw another part to this. And as you can tell here, I added in the last measure, I added in that 4 on the floor again before it goes into the third part. So I'm just copying over drums and things I like in this, and the hi-hat pattern, the snare. So at the end of the 4-bar phrase, you've got this cool 4 on the floor thing in the last half measure, or last measure, I guess, of each 8-bar, I'm sorry. So right here. So we're going to add those cymbals back in. We're going to add hi-hats. It's going to give it some power, some punch here. There we go. So that sounds pretty good. Okay, so that's a little long. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to cut this out. We're going to cut out half of this because it's too long. I like that. Now it's become an intro. When you're writing a library song, it's got to be at a good, like 15 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute long. This one's going to be a 30-second track. And it's got a big beginning, and then it's got a section where you can actually loop it. And I'll come back to that more. So I want to turn up the cymbals a little bit. I want to get a little more power out of that. So I'm starting to arrange a little bit now. I've got kind of 3 sections. I've got the beginning, I've got the regular groove, and then I build on that groove and then right into the ending of it. So I'm adding that snare to be a little bit bigger, a little bit louder. Nothing too complicated. And now I'm trying to figure out where to end it. I'm going to mark, I can see where my 30-second mark is down at the bottom there. And I'm trying to give myself a 4-measure outro. Do I want a good 8 bars of the last half of the groove and then go into the outro, or do I want the outro to be the tail? And the only way to know is to just try it and just experiment a little bit. So we're going to trim this out because I want to give myself some space. Okay, so that would end right near 30 seconds, but that may not be enough room. Again, it needs to be exactly 30 seconds. So why don't we drag it over so we have a little bit of room to sustain so that the music can die off before the 30 seconds ends. All right, so now we're going to grab the bass there, that gritty bass, and what do we got now? So that's like an extra measure after the 8-bar phrase or 4-bar phrase. Okay, could do that. But I think there's not going to be enough room here. So we're going to trim that out. Well, first we're going to just see what that looks like when we fade it out into 30 seconds. So I'm going to do a quick fade here on the master bus. Yeah, that's too fast. I don't have enough room there. So we're going to push this over into the, we're going to take out a measure of the second half, and now it actually is going to sound a little bit more natural, and now we have a little bit of room to sustain our cymbals and things like that at the end of it. So I put the marker right there on 30 so I know where it is, and now we need to readjust our automation. In fact, we'll just delete it and add it in later. So we can just to make sure that everything dies off quickly enough, we'll just add a quick automation to the master bus. Nothing complicated, just a quick swell. The reason I use the pen tool is because I like to actually have my markers right on an actual beat. Okay, easy peasy, nothing complicated there. So now we have room at the very end. Again, we have room at the very end so that our sustaining elements can sustain into the 30-second mark. We don't have to sacrifice any sound or do anything weird to make that work. So here's the second half. Now this needs to have some variation. We'll get to that. All right, guys, that's it for this week. Come back next week, and we will continue where we left off. Thanks for hanging in there with me. This is a 4-parter, so enjoy. See you next week. Stay frosty and keep writing.